Hello everyone, you know what time it is. It's time for Quora Question time. Let's get in there. Alright, about 20-minute video won't hurt today. Alright, when you call a credit card company, what information do they see about you on their screen? I'm not too interested in that. And I'm in my late 20s and I feel like I'm going nowhere in my life. What do I do? Let's continue on that one. Why do some rich people show off, but some don't? Now, I remember I read this in anthropology class. Like some, it could be like a sense of value, like a status symbol. There was like status symbol and status mimicry. So status symbol was when you can actually afford the item, like the $1,000 phone, iPhone or whatever. And status mimicry is when you actually like go into debt trying to like afford the item, just to show off that it looks like you're actually wealthy, but which in reality you're actually not. So that's the reason why. Why do employers not want employees eating at their desk? That one sounds like, okay, I won't answer that one. If you were 20 years old again, what would you do differently? All right, this is, I always like seeing these what if scenarios here. Let's see what this person would have done right here. So it's like if I can go back time. All right, I'm in my late 20s and now, and if I had to do it all over again, would I do it differently? Number one, don't listen to my Asian parents and do a comp sci or engineering degree mixed with psychology. 2. Leave the crappy friends way earlier. 3. Instead of spending money to impress people I don't even like, invest that money to make myself better. Yes, yes, that's yes, yes to this. Yes. Number 3. Number 4. On that note, learn about personal finance and invest earlier. Yes. 5. Stop watching that stuff. 6. Stop being a whiny person. Get out there and talk to people. 7. Yeah, also tell myself the alcohol and going to the club is not cool. 8. Study for the exams. I failed. 9. Learn to study properly. 10. Learn to live. 11. Experiment earlier with psychedelic. 12. Say thank you to dad for carrying my whole family out of poverty. What advice do you have to someone like me in the late 20s? Let me know in the comments. Okay. Why do people avoid me despite me being nice to them? Let's continue. What is the most important lesson someone has taught you? Um, how do I stop my boss from calling my private number when I'm on sick leave for a few months? He calls in to check how I'm doing and update me on work, but I don't care and don't want to. That kind of oversteps boundaries a little. Um, yeah. Um, is buying a car right now during COVID-19 a good time to buy a used car and get the best price? Let's continue here. What's the downside of being an introvert? Before we go further, right, we'll have to clear. Wait, what does that say? I see. Let's continue. Let's continue. Let's continue here. As a minimalist, what don't you own? Let's continue. My friend said he bought a Toyota Avalon because it's a Lexus ES without the price markup. Is this true and that these two cars are the same? Now, just so you know, the people who are seeing this for the first time, the Lexus is the luxury brand Toyota. So some cars like what was that car? I forgot which one. It was like a luxury brand of the Camry, but couldn't tell which one it was. How many careers have you had and how old are you? Let's continue. How do you quickly recognize a manipulative person? Is affiliate marketing actually as easy and well-paying as it's made to look? Let's see. I am 30 years old and still don't know what I want to do in life or career. Is my behavior normal? So it's like, how do people perform in their jobs if they feel they are grossly underpaid? Let's continue that one. Can a driver legally turn around before going through the roadblock? That sounds legitimate. Why aren't Italians, if they eat carbohydrates, pasta a lot? What is the 888 rule? 8 hours sleeping, 8 hours working. Okay, well, that's whatever. All right. What would be your best advice to a 26-year-old born to poverty that wants to break the cycle and obtain financial freedom? Let's continue on that one. What subtle behavior is an indicator that someone is not a nice person? Um, is it too bad to walk out of a restaurant without pay? Well, why do we need to learn useless things in school? So let some of this stuff, like I know some of the modern day proverbs, like, oh, the reason you need to know what happened, like the reason you need to know why the first president was George Washington was so what his policy was and like how you got to this point, or some things like, oh, because a lot of things in school, right, they may not be applicable to the life that you choose or you're heading to. Like for example, Pythagorean theorem. Have I used that? No. But that's applicable to people who are going into construction. So if they want to be the brains of the job, they can learn Pythagorean theorem and know how to close that perfectly triangle bathtub shield thing, whatever. Or for example, or if for history, sorry, I didn't mean to do that. Let me take off this auto rotate. For history, no, it's fine. For history, you can have like, oh, this is what a precedent was set, a precedent. So meaning like because this person said let this person go on this charge, that means it's okay, and then that gets overruled and stuff like that. And there's some stuff in school that's useful that you'll actually use in life that's common, like you use it in everyday life, like math, basic arithmetic. You use that in everyday life. So you say, oh, how many gallons I need to do, how much it will cost me, and all that. And then there's stuff that's like, you can probably live without. Like knowing how to do a poetry is not that important. However, it can be applicable into like other skills, such as poetry is sort of like rapping. So if you're a rapper, you can do poetry because stuff that rhymes, approximate rhymes, and all that, and that'll help as well. So there's some things. It all depends on what route you take in life. All right, let's see. Roman numerals. They never even tried to teach us that in school. Hmm. Said Bart, literally in the same episode where his teacher tried to teach him Roman numerals. Now he's in a life or death situation where he has to figure out which of the 9 doors marked with consecutive normal numerals is the only one without a tiger behind it. Look, you have no idea what situation you're about to face in the future. Yep, this is what I said. Teachers do their best to give you a foundation so that where you run into a situation in the future, you might have an inkling of what a cosine is, or can spot why a perpetual motion machine is a bad investment, or convince you that even winnable wars are a bad idea. Isaac Asimov said it best. There is a cult of ignorance in the United States, and there has always been. The strain of anti-intellectualism has been a constant thread winding its way through our political and cultural life, nurtured by the false notion that democracy means that my ignorance is just as good as your knowledge. So not to pick on DT, here's an article that sums it up nicely. Georgia governor slammed for not knowing asymptomatic people could transmit virus. Some people made critical decisions affecting the life of other people, probably bragging all the time about how they didn't take biology in high school because they taught all that evolution nonsense. Alright, what are the characteristics of a sweet person? Um, should I talk to my manager in person or by email about putting in my 2 weeks notice? I want to quit my job, but I've heard my manager is mean to those who plan on quitting, and we don't have that many employees. What is the best way to improve life? Continue. Can you write a list of 10 things you'll never do again? If you have a spare room, why don't you shelter a homeless person? What life events build the most character? Why does renting cost twice what a mortgage payment does? Rent. Okay, this is information I actually wouldn't mind learning right here. Rent is often higher than a reasonable mortgage payment on a property or that type because the landlord has expenses to cover, like that mortgage and an obvious desire to make a profit. I have often heard people complain that landlords should be happy with rents that cover their mortgage payment. hmm That the equity in the property ought to be an adequate reward. So the mortgage payment, because well, that's the one thing you still got to think about. Oh, is the utilities included or not? If it's including the mortgage payment, then you got to think the landlord has to set some money aside for the if a pipe gets busted, it's their responsibility. One moment. Excuse me. Sorry. All right. Which seems to be what you believe. Please think that through because it isn't uncommon for homeowners to spend decades paying off a mortgage. In the meantime, they will have the pleasure of knowing that they have that equity and perhaps the opportunity to borrow against it. It's not nothing, but isn't going to pay the insurance, taxes, or maintenance on the property, but it's certainly not going to provide the landlord with any income. So if a tenant paid rent that merely covered the mortgage payment, the landlord would still spend many years paying out of pocket just so the tenant could have the pleasure of living in a home for the same cost as a homeowner, but with none of the risk or hassles. Yep. Owning a property means paying rather a lot of money for insurance, especially if it's a rental property and you're still not completely immune from liability outside of what your insurance will cover. They make their money by not paying, after all. You will also have to pay property taxes, which in my state is substantially more on an invested property than a primary residence. Those expenses are not insignificant, but they pale in comparison to the cost of maintaining the property. You can insure yourself in every way possible, but no policy is going to cover all your repairs. If you've never owned a home, then you will not know that cold feeling in your heart when a wet spot appears on the ceiling or the furnace begins making suspicious noise. Your landlords know that feeling well, because when you picked up the phone and called for maintenance, they will have paid hundreds or more likely thousands of dollars to take care of the problem. All homeowners have expenses, but a landlord is also running enormous risk. You might know that you won't file a frivolous lawsuit against your landlord, that you won't suddenly stop paying rent and refuse to leave until evicted, and that you won't pour cement down the drains. Your landlord hopes you won't do any of those things, but they don't actually know that you won't. They have spent a great deal of money on a down payment. They're continuously sinking money into the property and paying the cost of ownership. They're running a huge risk, and on top of that, they're doing all the work of being a landlord. I'm sure you can understand why they wouldn't want to do all that just as a favor to you. So, of course, you have to pay them for their troubles. Yep, makes sense. I was working at 7-Eleven, and this 10-year-old tried to get away with sneaking a soda. I made him call his parents instead of calling the police because that could dent his future. Did I do the right thing? What's a driving safety tip that isn't commonly known but should be? Other than shouting back, what's the best thing to do if your boss screams at you about you did something you did wrong? This is interesting. Like if the boss shouts at you, they say, "Oh, what did you do?" Da, da, da. How do you? Let me think. Maybe just calmly um address, say, "Listen, Kim, we speak to this as without shouting." Now he gets louder. He's like, "Does that make you uncomfortable?" Oh, you're. This is like maybe you say yes. Maybe you just say yes. Like, if we can't speak like this, then I'll just walk away. So maybe like that. So I don't know. Well, let's see how someone else addresses it. I'm a physician. I have been screamed at by patients' families more times than I can count. Trust me, they were all my boss. Oh, that's true. That's true. I was thinking about like physicians just have to take it, like, or they don't have to. Well, not necessarily take it, but um, yeah. Let's see how he handles it. It was almost always something over which I had no control. No, I can't help it. If it's the ice machine in the ED, it's loud. Here's how I deal with anyone who screams at me. I remind myself that it's not about me. People who are screamers to everyone. A stressful situation can bring out the worst in anyone. Fear of losing control of a situation can make people do some outlandish things. Does this mean that I condone this behavior? Absolutely not. I think it denotes a lack of sophistication of thought and poor coping skills. Interesting. Surprisingly, not everyone wants to be me when they grow up. So strangely enough, it happens. Stay calm, don't yell back, no matter how unjust the situation. The louder they get, the calmer you get. Adopt an expression of polite interest. No eye rolling or pursed lips. Is there any truth in what they are saying? If there is, own up to it. If you get a word in, ask questions. It will make them slow down and think. It looks like this. I walked into the intensive care unit one morning. A family was just put to discontinued care on a patient. Pulled the plug. I was a doctor assigned to that patient that day. I had not previously been involved in this care. I read through the chart. The poor man had horrible chronic lung disease. At baseline, he was quite ill at the time of admission with his fourth big bout of pneumonia. He was found down in his room. He had lapsed into a state where his heart was not beating, but the electrical activity was registered on telemetry as though it was. This was a limit in the existing technology, not hospital negligence, that led him not to be discovered for a short while. When found, they called the code blue and resuscitated him. It was too late. He was brain dead. The man's son was going off the deep end. I introduced myself calmly. I'm Dr. Bowen. This is truly an awful day for you. How can I help? I want answers now! Quietly, I replied. Sure, let's sit down in the conference room and talk. This effing hospital killed my father. You aren't going to get away with this. I'm going to sue you. I had not been involved in his care. I listened to him rant and rave, a polite look of interest on my face. When he had yelled himself out, I explained what had happened. You are only saying that because you work for the hospital. I didn't work for the hospital. He jumped on and ranted some more. I took out my card. It had my practice name and address on it. I silently set it on the table in front of him. Okay, so you don't work for the hospital. Still, you people killed a healthy man. His dad was anything but healthy. More ranting and cussing. I sat quietly and empathetically listening. This guy didn't know up from down. All he could think about was the loss of his beloved father. Again he yelled himself out. Sir! Oh, sorry. Sir, I can see how very upset you are. I can't imagine how sad this day is for you. Unfortunately, your poor dad was not a healthy man. He had end-stage lung disease. You're just saying that! Sir, did your dad have an oxygen unit that he dragged behind him? I asked gently. Yeah. Was he a lifelong heavy smoker? I asked quietly. Yeah. Was he hospitalized for his time in the last 2 years for severe pneumonia again? Quietly. Yeah. Are these the signs of a healthy man? Well, no, I guess not. I'm so very sorry for the unimaginable grief you experienced. Thanks. Would you like to go be with him now? Yeah. This was a pretty common occurrence at the hospital. I didn't take it personally. Now, if I had done something wrong, I would have admitted it. I would ask how to make it right. On the other hand, if the person screaming were a colleague or someone in a hospital administration who was not distraught, I still handle it the same way. Only difference was that I would sit down with that person. Perhaps the next day, I would approach them when they were calm. I would very calmly explain that it is not acceptable to treat me that way. I would, and I have told people not to ever treat me that way again. No one with whom I had that conversation has ever screamed at me again. This includes an attending physician when I was a resident. Once I calmly called the bully out, I found that they cut it out. Peace. Wow, that's amazing. That's an amazing read. Wow. All right, let me see. I think we'll call it right there. Yeah, we'll call it right there and call it the 20-minute there. And thank you again. You guys all take it easy. Adios.